We know that flying can be expensive, but now we've learned that the most expensive flight for taxpayers in the lower 48 states flies in and out of Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport.
Essential Air Service is a federally funded program that keeps planes flying to remote airports whether or not there's real demand. Our Steve Tellier investigated one small city's fight for flights and found all of us are paying for it.
It's mid-morning, midweek at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Our photographer is a bit lonely. At gate B14, his Great Lakes Airlines flight fits 9 passengers, but once on board, just 3 seats are filled. 1 hour later, welcome to Watertown, South Dakota.
It's a wonderful, wonderful town.
There's a certain sweetness downtown.
We made chocolate walnut fudge today.
But even these delectable confections don't compare to the treat turned over to this city by taxpayers. Up until recently, the city of 22,000 was running 36 flights a week to and from the Twin Cities. Our round-trip ticket should have cost about $1,400, but we paid less than $400. You picked up the rest, about $1,000 in government subsidies.
Why is the Essential Air Service program so important to Watertown?
Well, one of the reasons is that, well, there's numerous reasons. Because
Watertown Mayor Steve Thorson says for some local companies, small and mid-size industrial and manufacturing businesses with international reach, easy access to the airways is crucial. He adds the Sioux Falls Airport, just 90 minutes away, is not an ideal alternative.
It is a convenience for our local-owned corporations.
So really the biggest argument from your perspective is economic.
It is.
But I dissected federal data and found Watertown to MSP is the most highly subsidized route for any airport that close to a hub in the lower 48. This year, the average flight took off with more than 7 of 9 seats empty. The subsidy per passenger stood at more than $1,000.
That's enormous.
That's huge. And I can't understand anybody wanting to fund something like that, because you look at that and it's just a waste of taxpayers' money.
When we're paying thousands of dollars each day to fly empty planes to and from remote areas in America, you just have to question, is this a good use of taxpayer subsidies?
Annette Meeks, long a fighter against frivolous federal spending, calls the numbers breathtaking.
You just cannot even get rid of a program as outrageous as this one is. You just have to look at that and say, please stop the insanity.
Why are there so few passengers on these flights?
Well, because they have no reliability. People don't know if their flight is going to get canceled the night before.
As Great Lakes Airlines blamed a pilot shortage for a slew of cancellations, passenger numbers took a nosedive, shooting Watertown's per passenger subsidy into the upper atmosphere. Service turned so turbulent, the city is now searching for a new carrier.
Meanwhile, the federal government is threatening to cut funding for any route that exceeds a subsidy of $200 per passenger. But that rule only applies to airports that are within 210 miles of a hub like MSP. The feds have always listed Watertown as being 207 miles from MSP Airport, which means taxpayer dollars could be cut off unless the city could somehow prove it's more than 210 miles away. That's exactly what it's now trying to do.
I discovered the mayor sent the Department of Transportation these MapQuest maps over the summer, trying to prove his city is 210.8 miles from MSP. If successful, Watertown's subsidy per passenger would be cleared to take off.
It looks like the city is trying to wriggle out of that requirement. Is that true?
Well, I don't think we're trying to wiggle out of it.
Thorson says Watertown simply annexed additional land in recent years, causing its city center to shift. But critics say the ridiculous has become routine in a program that runs up a $250 million bill every year nationwide.
Is Essential Air Service essential?
I think it's one of the most non-essential programs that our federal government funds.
And we're not just talking about Watertown. 5 airports in Minnesota receive federal flight subsidies, but 3 of them, Bemidji, International Falls, and Thief River Falls, are so far from a medium or large hub airport that they aren't subject to per passenger subsidy limits. Chisholm-Hibbing's per passenger subsidy is $117. Brainerd's is just $50. Obviously, those numbers pale in comparison to that $1,000 number with Watertown.
That is a real shocker here. $1,000 per passenger per flight. That's a lot of money over a year's period. So we understand that Watertown is now looking looking for a new carrier. Where do they stand in that process?
Well, the city actually shut down its current service at the end of September with Great Lakes Airlines because passenger numbers had become so abysmal. There are now 2 tiny airlines vying to take over the route, so it's likely not going anywhere. But the less expensive option, at least for taxpayers, would shift service to Denver instead of the Twin Cities. So we're tracking what's going to happen with this.
Very interesting to learn about this. All right, thank you, Steve Tellier.